Earlier on today, I went down to the sleepy town of Crowborough to speak to real people whose lives are going to be turned upside down with the arrival of illegal migrants at the local military base there. They've kicked out cadets, of course. Let's put it this way, they did not hold back.
I'm Denise.
And where are you from, Denise?
I'm originally from London. I moved to Crowborough in 1996. And I never felt so safe, which I don't now.
And what's brought you out here today?
For all the females. I know men are affected as well, but, you know, I was going to the gym. I go to the gym in the evening, about 6 o'clock. I saw an approximately 18-year-old girl walking her dog, and I just looked at her and thought, you won't be able to do that anymore. I'm speaking for the females here. We're a population of approximately 21,000. I know that they're in other places of the country. Bolton, there's 310,000 population in Bolton. You know, they can be absorbed. We can't absorb them.
I'm originally from up north, but I live in Brighton, which is it took us 20 minutes to get here today, so we're not very far away. We just came for support and solidarity for Crowborough. You know, it starts here, it's coming to all of us. You know, we've got Bella Sankey, who's our Labour leader in Brighton, and she's just accepted to go on the pilot scheme to build a load of new houses for asylum seekers. So, you know, it's coming to us. It's coming to us really, really soon.
Why are you here? What's the importance of this protest?
We're here to protect our community. You know, they've moved. Don't get us wrong, we're not racist. If they came the correct way for asylum, then, you know, that's great. But when they jump in dinghies and come across their channel and then they're shipped out, it's all completely wrong.
Are you locals? Why is this important?
Yes, we moved to Crowborough 4 years ago after retiring, working in London. Wanted to retire in a lovely place, which we did. And then they've done this to us. They've put undocumented men into our area that we do not want, we've never asked for. And we're just so appalled that they're doing this to us. The army training camp, they keep putting out that it's a disused. It wasn't a disused camp. It was used regularly by hundreds of air cadets, and then they've got the flight simulator in there that they were using. It was a training camp, and they've taken that away from the area, so our young people have got nothing to do. Sick to death of listening to people that say, oh, we can't do that because of the blob. We can't do that because of human rights. What about our human rights? I worked in London for 42 years, my husband worked for 49 years, and now we've got to put up with this. If I went to any other country in the world, they would give me nothing. They would tell me, there's a plane, get out. We don't want you, we're not looking after you. So why should we look after people that have never worked in this country, never paid into this company, never contributed to anything, and that they come in and take, and I'm sick to death of it.
We just feel it's a little bit unfair on the community because, you know, you do hear rumours about the way some of the people behave. It is a bit of a worry for people who've got young children at schools, for girls walking home from the pub at night perhaps on their own. And I think that feeling's pretty generally felt through most of the people here.
You can see from how many people have turned up today, not just from here, from other towns as well, who have actually turned up to support us, really, and that's what we needed. But yes, there's a lot of anger, a lot of disappointment with the way that this has been handled. You know, we've not been made. It's not been made clear to us how these immigrants are going to be around the town. What are the police going to do? So yes, we're just, you know, we're just fed up with it.
What would you like to see happen, Jerry?
I don't see. How can we've got to stop the boats. That's the only way we're ever going to do this. That's the only way we're going to do it. That's why we've got this now. People wouldn't be here today if the boats weren't coming. Simple as that.
Can't stress how these are just ordinary people who, many of them told me it's the first time they've ever gone on protests since this thing erupted, and how they're just furious about not having any consent about what's happened in their local town. It's a very small town, Crowborough. Adam, we're seeing similar sorts of things happen across the country now. A lot of them exceptionally angry at Shabana Mahmood, who's boasted that she's going to do more of this stuff on military bases.
Well, I'm angry. I'm a father. You know, I've got women in my family that I worry. I live near the Bell Hotel, less than 2 miles away. I was there today, showing my support to some of the protesters. Look, there's a reason why people are worried. These foreign men are disproportionately committing sex crimes, sexual assaults, rapes. We've had murders, paedophiles. You go on the paedophile sting websites, many of them have been in the country literally weeks or months. These foreign men are disproportionately committing sex crime. So when you dump potentially hundreds in a town like Crowborough, of course, the men are going to come out to protect their women. And the women now are standing up and leading these protests, like the Pink Ladies done with Epping.
It's true.
And I stand there and I salute them, because the Home Office turned around and said, and Bridget Phillipson agreed as well, that asylum seekers' rights trump the rights of local residents. What sort of country do we live in where asylum seekers have more rights than those that are born here and that have paid in their whole life? It's our daughters' safety, our wives' safety at stake. And I make these people 100%. And I would have joined them today, but look, I think that was a local thing for them. But I will go to Crowborough and support them down the line. And yeah, a message to them is keep going.
Bill, this policy, when it starts hitting local communities, they are furious. And it's very clear to me this was people from all ages, and we'll see some more of them later in the show, because we're going to play more. We're going to play more footage that we've got later on in the show tonight. All ages, all different classes, all different backgrounds, furious. They haven't had a say. They feel let down by Labour. They feel let down by the Home Secretary. What would your message to them be?
Look, people have a right to protest. They have a right to object, but they don't have a veto over this process. And, you know, the government has rightly wanted to end the use of asylum hotels during this Parliament. The numbers are down from 400 to 200 due to government action. That's driving the costs down. We want to avoid using houses in multiple occupation, because that's actually worse, I think, than asylum hotels. And the least worst option, whilst you're processing the asylum claims, is disused military sites. It saves you money. They're much easier to regulate and secure. So in Crowborough, there is security. There's 24/7 security. There's CCTV in place. But this is about managing that process whilst we try to drive the number of asylum seekers down. And I think it's the right approach. And, you know, it can be managed. But the solution longer term is to drive the numbers down even further, so that we don't need this kind of accommodation in the future.
Jane, there's a lot here when we talk. I mean, the lady from Brighton was right. There are Labour initiatives now for councils to take money to renovate council houses and to build some for asylum seekers. We've seen those reports out now. People feel there's an incentive to come to Britain. And Bill's right. The Labour government have pledged to get people out of hotels. However, they're putting them elsewhere. They're not going out of the country en masse, these illegal migrants. They're just being moved around. And this is the problem people have got. They want the solution. Clearly, when I asked them, they all said they wanted them detained and deported.
Absolutely. I have to come back on something Bill said, because out of the 200-odd hotels that have been closed since the peak, Labour have closed about 5 of them, and it was all done by the last Conservative government. But the numbers aren't coming down.
When you left office.
Not when we left office.
Yeah, when you left
at the
office,
peak
there were
of the
400.
hotels, Labour had closed very, very few. And it's condensing people. But I think here it's not secure. That site is not secure. Yes, dormitories. Yes, basic accommodation. Every time the Conservatives looked at things like that, we were shouted down in the last Parliament by Lib Dems, by Labour, by the SNP, as being inhumane. You know, you cannot treat people like this, you know. And now Labour are in government, they're waking up to reality that actually you do have to deal with people. But what needs to be done, they mustn't be allowed to just walk out the barracks.
And they are.
They have to be secured. It is not safe. We don't know who they are. Okay. We don't know if they've got criminal records. We don't know if they're going to commit crime.
Very briefly, Adam.
Exactly. Bill just said it's better than having them in HMOs. Why is that? What reason's that, Bill?
Well,
Because they're
it
dangerous?
would be if you locked them in.
No, because they.
Yes, because it's dangerous. They're put amongst women and children in our roads.
I think residential neighbourhoods.
Inconvenience. It's better to manage them within a former military site than it is within a house in multiple occupation in the middle of a council.
But they shouldn't be allowed to wander around.
I just want to say, because a resident came up to me today and they said, please, can you remind people the space isn't isolated. There are houses literally outside the gates of it. So there is going to be an immediate impact on people living in that area. And I promised I would say that tonight, and that is clearly the truth of it all. Earlier today, I went down to the sleepy town of Crowborough to speak to real people whose lives are going to be turned upside down with the arrival of illegal migrants, dead in the middle of the night, by the way, they snuck them in, at a local military base where the cadets have been booted out. I spoke to local activists and politicians to get their view.
Scared, honestly, and I also don't like that my freedom's taken away as well.
What kind of freedom's been taken away from you?
Being able to walk an easier way to school, like a shorter way to school, going up to the town, not even just by myself, with my friends.
The thing is, at this age, they see the media, and there's so much in the media about, the attacks that are happening, and that's what they get to see. So whether, these are real or perceived fears, the fears are real, and this community is feeling it. So Crowborough Shield is a community interest company that was set up in response to the media when they said that we were going to be hosting 600 male asylum seekers at the Cadet Training Centre, which is not a disused army barracks, as it keeps being said, and which Shabana Mahmood keeps saying that that's what it is. I think we've seen about 5 coach loads go in over the last couple of days. I think the whole thing is just disgraceful, and Shabana Mahmood on social media and on media interviews saying Crowborough is just the first and we're going to open site after site, bragging and boasting about disrupting communities, and they're placing asylum seekers in places that are just, it's not humane. Whatever government is in power needs to get to grips with the root cause. Putting them in army barracks, whether they're disused or not, hotels, none of this is right. But to kick out thousands of cadets of a training centre, not an army barracks that's disused, on the edge of a little town that doesn't have the infrastructure to support it, is just a terrible, terrible decision.
Final message to the Home Secretary?
She's reckless, and to boast about this is disgraceful, and I think you should resign.
As a resident myself, I'm angry and scared. I may be a 38-year-old male, but it's only so much you can do if you're attacked on your own, isn't there? Look, it's just a mess, and you look around at the people who have started to leave now, but I speak to a lot of women in particular who come up and say, thanks for all the things that you're doing to try and help us, and raising the profile of it, but they're terrified. I had one lady said she wouldn't even go to the Morrisons here, which, for those that know the area, there's an underground car park that goes straight into the shop. If you're scared to go to an underground car park at the shop, that says it all for me.
What would Reform UK do differently here if it was elected into the local area?
So in the local area, we would have definitely put more challenges in legally, or whatever processes would have been followed at whichever council level, first and foremost. But from a national level, the policy is to detain and deport. So I see a lot of comments on our social media saying, well, it's Reform's policy to use military barracks. Yes, it is, but as a detention centre before deportation. Speaking to parents, particularly those with daughters, they're saying that they're effectively going to have to lock their kids down, or heavily control what they do. When you're a teenager, you don't want that. You want that independence, and you want to grow, and you want to learn.
Initially, the council wrote back to the Home Office and said, we'd be happy to work with you to make your plans as efficient as possible. The reaction from the town was almost immediate and very, very strong. And it said, no, we do not want this here. There were several public meetings in the early days, which were televised and broadcast. They were universally against this plan. And when that happened, and when the council finally saw, the leadership of the council finally saw what was the community reaction, they changed course. They basically did a Keir Starmer style U-turn and voted to oppose the camp. The problem is, I've not seen anything concrete from the leadership of the council.
But is there a dissenting voice? Are some people okay with the illegal migrants being here?
I've not met anyone in Crowborough that is happy about it. The people on the left of the argument generally are against it because they will argue that the accommodation is inhumane. The people on the further right will probably argue that it's a problem with the small boats, and we need to stop the small boats. I would agree. I'm much further right than left, and believe that this is a problem that is manifesting in UK towns because the government just continues to fail to get a grip on our border situation. I mean, 800 migrants arrived on UK last week. This is going to house 540 at any one time. It is not going to touch the sides. And all it's doing is warehousing the result of a government problem into British communities.
Well, you've heard it, haven't you? You've heard it there firsthand from real people in that area. I couldn't find a single person, by the way, that was supportive of any of these policies the Home Secretary and the Labour government put forward. And by the way, where were BBC and Sky News for all of this? This is real Britain. It is your job as journalists, as news reporters, to go out and talk about these critical issues. And I think it's very disappointing. I want to see our colleagues in the media there, but they just let us down all the time. Anyway, look, Bill, I'll come to you and Shabana Mahmood. They are scathing about the Home Secretary. Scathing. Kim there, who's the head of Crowborough Shield, thinks she should resign. People said Shabana Mahmood has let them down. She's reckless. What do you make of it?
No, she's not let them down and she's not reckless. Look, if you want to end the use of asylum hotels, which the government does, and you don't want people in houses of multiple occupation, until you can drive the number of asylum seekers down dramatically, then they have to be housed. And the best and the safest place for that to be is in disused military camps. And that's what the government is doing.
Those people would disagree with you very strongly. There's houses outside that military base, Bill.
Right, and they're entitled to that view. They're entitled to protest. It doesn't mean they have a veto over what is happening.
OK, but answer this for me. Yeah. Why won't Tony Blair, your government that you served under, deported quite a lot of people? You can remind me the number if you want to. I can't quite recall it. Well, but it was a lot of people.
We cut asylum numbers from about 84,000 a year in the early 2000s to 19,000 by the time we left office per year.
So you were very good at it. What did you do? You deported them, didn't you?
Some of them were deported.
You deported a lot of people.
Yeah, but we drove the numbers down. But it takes time. And anyone who says that it doesn't take time is either fooling themselves or trying to fool other people. And when I listen to Reform and they say detain and deport, I disagree with that view. They're entitled to it, but that means leaving the 51 Refugee Convention. That's not
good. That's what everyone wants.
No, it's not what everyone wants.
Look what Trump done in Mums.
Most people respect the right of asylum claims.
The majority of people have had enough.
All right, one at a time. Let's go to Jane and then we'll go to Adam. Come on.
Bill, you have to accept that the UN Refugee Convention and the 67 expansion of that convention, it was written in a completely different time for global movement. We now have 100 million people trying to find somewhere nicer to live. Clearly, that convention is mathematically impossible to keep going. So we do need, and Labour scrapped the Rwanda scheme, third country asylum. You get to go somewhere safe, but it won't necessarily be into Europe. We have to look at that. You must admit, mathematically, it's impossible to keep in these conventions.
Adam, can I put this to you?
I'll let you come back in a second. Is in favour of leaving.
Bill, I'll let you come back in a second.
Convention at the moment, are they?
But we are supporting Rwanda scheme, which is a third-party relocation.
All right, OK. Look, Adam, I want to put this to you. That independent councillor who gave an interview to us there said that some on the left call it inhumane to have people on military camps. He did make also the point that 800 people arrived last week or so, and there's a 500 people capacity in that military base. It just won't be enough, will there? They'll have to build and build and build on these military bases. There'll be more illegal migrants on these bases than there were ever cadets.
Alex, this is a national emergency, and we've got a government that's just lying week after week. One in, one out, lie. Smash the gangs, lie. Record numbers crossing the channel, still crossing the channel. What are they going to do? We are being invaded as a country. And we're being told by the Home Office that asylum seekers have more rights than us, the taxpayer, and those that were born here. This is a national emergency. And let me tell you now, in a lovely place like Crowborough, one of those, when there's 500 in there, will misbehave, and I hope not, but a young woman or a girl will be targeted at some point in the future, and that town will erupt. And you cannot blame them, because we're fathers, we're mothers, fathers, grandparents. We just want to protect our kids and our grandkids, and the government are putting them in danger.
Bill, there was a young lady I spoke to. She was 14 years old. Permission from the parents, if anyone's asking, to speak to her. She said she was scared. And I'm sure if it was your family living in that area too, Bill, you would feel the same way. And whilst that councillor did point to the left saying it's inhumane to have those people in military camps, is it not inhumane for the people of Crowborough who have got young children in that area whose lives will now be completely changed as a result of this policy?
Well, there's so much misinformation being put out there. Look, you know, the number of incidents of assaults involving asylum seekers in hotels is about 0.2%.
Nonsense. I'm putting one up every day,
it's
Bill.
About 0.2% of the numbers in hotels. The number of victims of violent sexual assault is 1.9% of the population. There's a massive gap there. What does that indicate? It indicates that the most likely source of violent sexual assault is from white Anglo-Saxon men.
Would you want your children raised in that area, though, Bill?
It's such a disgusting way.
I live just down the road from the Bell Hotel, so yeah.
OK.
I know exactly what it's
not.
All right, fine. We'll have to leave it there. We've run out of time, unfortunately. OK. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has said this. Illegal migration has been placing immense pressure on communities. That is why we are removing the incentives that draw illegal migrants to Britain, closing asylum hotels that are blighting communities. Crowborough is just the start. I will bring forward site after site until every asylum hotel is closed and return to local communities. I will not rest until order and control is restored to our borders. All right, listen.